welcome to Blushing Rose Tarot. Today is the second episode of my learning tarot, tarot study. I had to remember what I called it. So we're going to ignore these two nails here, even though I'm pointing them out. So today I was really thinking about how, for me, this journey of learning tarot is really about splitting it up between making sure I give time to really intuition and how I'm intuiting the cards and exercising that muscle and building that muscle, as well as the academic study of tarot and learning like from the Rider-Waite deck, my study deck. So I really wanted to walk you through just how I go about looking at both of those two elements together. So I came up with this idea of we're just going to go through each of the numbers of each of the suits and kind of look at the cards in different decks and see how you can kind of intuitive something different from them and how I kind of approach the process. So I hope this is helpful for you, and yeah, let's just dive right in. So to do this process, actually we're going to start with the standard Rider-Waite. Now this version here is the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot. I like this one because it's just super bright. It speaks to me. So for me, this is something that if I'm learning the OG tarot, I need something that's a bit brighter. There's different versions of it, of course, but for this, we're going to use the one I use the most, which is the Radiant Rider-Waite tarot deck. So this one here. This is going to be our study deck, and then I'll line the other ones up here. The four examples of decks, we're going to use the Muse Tarot by Chris Ann. This one here is a mass market deck. This is a mass market deck. This one here, Highly Sensitive Tarot. This one is an indie deck that I got off of Etsy. So we're going to use this one here. We're also going to use, this is an indie deck, but it's a great study deck. This one is Lucid Dreams. This is the original one. There's another one called Black Eclipse. And then we're also going to use Curious Travelers Tarot. This is one of my favorite ones. This one, I think she still has a few copies left. This is an indie version, but I know that it's going to be picked up mass market. So, all that jazz. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the aces from all of the suits from all of these decks, and we'll get started. Okay, so I'm not sure why, but I find that like the aces and the court cards kind of are a little bit harder for me to understand, or they're a challenge for me as I'm learning. So I decided to just try this method. So we're just gonna dive in. Now keep in mind, like for me, aces, I still need to kind of read. I know that overall an ace is a new beginning. I know it can be an offering of some sort. Yeah, it's a new beginning. That's kind of like not the extent of what I know about it, but that's always what pops in my head first. So if I'm looking at, we're going to go by suit, and these are 4 different decks. So if I'm looking at this here, it shows me, and this is the Rider-Waite here, it shows me that this new beginning in the Ace of Wands is something that's creative. It's an inspiration. It's because I know that the element of Wands is fire. So it's creation. It's, yeah, new beginning, creative. Passionate, I suppose. I'm just going through in my mind like some of the things I think about. I see this here with the light around the hand. It's this offering of this new creative beginning or pursuit in some sort. Yeah, so that's kind of what I look at here when I'm looking at this. I also know that aces can be inspiration. It can be a creative project, a new initiative, enthusiasm, energy, and potential. So that's from the suit of wands what I would look at when I see this Ace of Wands here. And then I'm looking at, okay, well, for me, I need the variety, right? Like if I'm asking a question, I want to see, yes, what do I know about the deck from the standard Rider-Waite, but also what can I pick up from a different image? So we're going to go through first this one, and then we'll just go across. The good thing about this deck here is that it has keywords on it. So in my journey or in learning it, it is definitely helpful to see the keywords up there. And then also this one too, I've mentioned on my channel, I'm not sure if you've watched any of the videos. If you haven't, that's okay, I'll mention again. For me, it's important to learn the esoteric elements as well. It just works with my brain. So like, for example, This is the Ace of Wands, and it also looks very similar to the standard Rider-Waite. So it's, I would say it's kind of a clone here. But also what I'm getting aside from the keywords up here is I get the, make sure you can see it, I know that the Ace of Wands specifically is a fire suit, and with this card it's related to all of the fire signs because it's an ace. So Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, and this is the sign for fire. So it tells me that as well. But if I'm looking at these two different depictions, I can see, yes, this is a new beginning. I see now a little bit more like the creativity is possibly flowing around you. You're grasping it. You're igniting this idea because of the treatment of this card, right? Like it's got foil on it. I see the vine intertwined as opposed to this one. I see definitely the clouds in the hand. That's very similar here. This light here is very similar as well. But then I'm also looking at, you know, down here, this foliage, and it gives a little bit more detail. And I could say, maybe this, depending on the question that I'm asking, maybe this inspiration is something that has to do with a very grounding nature, or a project that's rooted in nature, or maybe something that is growing that is of creative pursuit versus, yes, I know that creativity is involved with the Ace of Wands, but I don't see that so much here as I do here with like the flowers and things like that. And then this branch here. Yeah, so this is one of the things that I would look at. Okay, well, if I'm looking at this deck, yes, it has keywords on it, but beyond that, depending on the question, what else is this image telling me? So that's one way looking at this first deck. Looking at this second deck here, Ace of Wands, very similar again. So now we're getting a little bit more artistic in it. And that's just the kind of decks that I usually gravitate to. So your deck choices may be different than mine, but these are the ones I gravitate to. So again, holding it up next to the standard Rider-Waite, which again is a bit more brilliant in colors, but you get the basic imagery of the way the card was intended. So I do still see this hand, right? But now this hand isn't something, this new beginning or this creativity isn't something that's being offered to me. See here? It's something that's coming from me. It's coming from really myself, right? Like this idea is winding, it's putting all of maybe my talents, maybe ideas, it's creating something from them together. So it shows me I have creative potential coming out of all aspects of this hand, right? And this hand specifically is the left hand. And the left hand here is definitely about holistic, it's about creativity, whereas the right hand is more about the rational. So I would look at that too. I'm like, oh, this is something of maybe a spiritual nature, or something that is very artistic or creative specifically to me. I would also see the sun, how it treats differently than here. I would see the sun as going, this is something that's enlightening. It may be something that my ancestors or the universe is showing me, or it's bringing to me from that, or shining light on rather. I also see that, you know, this idea is growing through these clouds here. It may show me that, again, depending on the question that I'm asking, you know, there will be some times of uncertainty before I get to the ultimate manifestation of this, which is at the top here. The colors also too are very, very grounding. Also very red for me is, you know, passion, or it's igniting something. So yeah, that's how I could possibly take the idea and my knowledge of the standard one and kind of go, well, from this deck, what else is this showing me? How can I see that first, and then maybe match it up to some of the definitions that I know? So we'll go to the next. So the Ace of Wands in this deck here, this is the Muse Tarot by Chris Ann here. This one, I love collage style decks, so you'll see that in all of these, at least one. So again, matching it up to the standard Rider-Waite, right? This deviates a lot. Like you don't see the hand anymore. You don't see the wand anymore, the clouds. You don't see those things. Also, this one has renamed it to Ace of Inspiration. So knowing that inspiration is one of the keywords, to have that as the name of the suit says a lot, right? Also too, when I'm looking at this card, now it's so different from this one, right? So this one I would have to say, okay, what do I know about this? What is this image telling me? I see the creativity flowing through. It's got a grounding nature. It's coming from the ground. It's going all the way up to the ethers, the universe here, right? And it's flowing through her. It's turning this black and white image into one of color, right? It's crossing her lips, maybe her ability to speak it into manifestation, her throat, her neck, right? It's really kind of cohesive, and it's I don't know the right word for it, but it's in harmony, right? And I see that it's really kind of she's focused in one circle, right? So maybe this is telling me that this new creative inspiration, this new idea is something that needs to be focused on, right? You have different elements here, plant elements. The clouds aren't, if we're looking at them compared to this one, the clouds are not something that she's having to go through to get this idea birthed. It's more of her being a channel, and then the clouds are really kind of dissipating at the bottom here. So I could read this, again, depending on the question, but if I'm just looking at the Ace of Wands, this gives me something completely different, right, than just this. So I may look at this and go, oh, I want to read this from the image and then pull in some of the knowledge that I have of the standard Rider-Waite. The last one. So this last one is very, very different, right? I mean, we don't even see any of the elements in this one, but there's this energy about this, right? It's, if I'm looking at the spark of something new, of inspiration, creativity, an offering, a beginning, right? I see that she's very confident, like the beginning and the creativity and the inspiration has already formed here on her head, right? And it's the sun setting, it's the luminous quality of this. I may say that this idea isn't necessarily something new, but this is the part of the idea that will be new, right? Like a part of something I may already be working on, and it's time to own it. It's time to feel all of this energy and manifest it from not completely new perspective, but from a, hey, you've got all the other pieces, put them together now, move forward with this part of it. So that's how I could probably see it if I'm looking at it from this deck. Okay, now on to the Ace of Cups. And I'm just going to be straight transparent with you. Some of the definitions, because aces are still a challenge for me, I'm probably going to read from this deck here that actually has the keywords on it. But I'll start with what I know. So I do know that with an ace, again, new beginning, I see that this is a beginning in an emotional nature, something of the heart, because water, the element of water, is one of an emotional capacity. It's from emotion, right? I would see that if I know, okay, an ace is something new, right? A new beginning. The suit element is water. It's a new emotional beginning. But then if I look now into this card, it's something that's being offered to me. It's also being supported maybe by the universe here with this dove. I see that the emotions are overflowing. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, right? Depending upon what the question is. I see that because of this overflow, you know, you do have these petals here. I believe these are lotuses that are growing from the bottom, right? So that's what I see when I see the standard Rider-Waite. Now when I'm looking at this deck, as you can see, it's very similar. It has more detail, right? This again has the keywords on it, which I love because it's helping me. So the Ace of Cups can represent love, a new relationship, compassion, creativity, new emotions, emotional awakening. Again, water, emotions here with suit of water, deeper feelings, a proposal, spirituality or intimacy. I'm not going to go into all the elements on the side, but again, it has that for me as well. But if we're looking at these and how I may see something different, right? This one here, the water is there. It's already in the picture. But if I'm looking here, I may say, okay, well, this was desert. This was barren. It's dry. Now with this new offering and these new look like comets from the side, it could be something that's this maybe unexpected, but it's now filling your cup up where there once was maybe a lack of, or you didn't have a relationship in your life, or you're feeling emotionally drained or lonely or things like that, right? I also see it's a bit of an emotional nature and could possibly be somewhat confusing because you have a sliver of the moon there. However, this offering is coming through the clouds, and it also, the colors start to go brighter, right? Then there's this intricacy on this beautiful cup here. I could see that as so many different things, but if I'm looking at this and not reading first, right? If I'm just looking at this image, this is how a different Ace of Cups can give me more information to go from than maybe just what's on the standard card here. So we'll go to the next. Okay, so onto this next deck here. Still very similar, but now we're focusing on key elements here, right? I see that now this is, again, not something that's being offered to me maybe from, you know, the universe. This is coming from maybe a deeper place, right? This arm is coming out of the ground. The water is overflowing, and the water is actually very intricately kind of surrounding this hand here. The hand is lightly holding it, kind of like, is this hand catching it? Or is this hand just, you know, holding it up very lightly? And I may, in this one long drop that's about to hit the flowers, but it's also murkier. So I may see this as, this is an emotional offering or a relationship or something of an emotional satisfaction that may come to you in a place when you're in a place of darkness, and it will bring you joy, it will bring something new life here, right? Because the only colors here are in this flower. It's really vibrant in comparison to this. And I see that it will overflow, right? It's directional. It's just one direction this is coming from, and it's flowing in one direction too. So I may see that way first, and then kind of draw from what else do I know about the card from my studies. But just intuitively looking at the picture, I would notice different things as you're doing the question, but those are the main things I would notice probably first with this one. Okay, next one. So this next one here is completely different, right? I mean, it's, which I love, right? So now you look a little closer and you see here's a woman, here's a figure, and she's so overflowing with emotion that she's almost letting out. She could be a sigh of relief, a sigh of just gasp, like, I can't believe this is happening now. Or you can inversely see it like, is she about to go under with this new offer, right? Is she going under the water, or is she coming out of the water? You can see this triangle here with, it's the cup that's kind of holding her, but she's out, she's now overflowing with it, right? But it's still somewhat contained within her. So again, you can look at this in lots of different ways, but this one would cause me to look at the card first and see what I see, right? And then it tests me in a different way, because then I'd have to bring up, what do I know about the Ace of Cups? Well, this one says Ace of Emotions. They renamed the suit because there's nothing indicating on this card maybe what the standard Rider-Waite would show. Okay, so on to the next. Now this Ace of Cups is purely focused on the joy. Look at her face, right? There's not a care in the world. The sun is shining. There's warmth. There's a little breeze. The flowers, the colors, the energy of all of it moving, the look just on her face. So, excuse me, this one I would key right into the emotion. How is it going to impact me, or how is it going to impact the person? Because I see it directly in the card. So yeah, I love this deck for this one. Lots of different things, but I definitely love it for the emotion that it shows in the cards. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next suit. Ooh, now the suit of swords. So swords is the element of air, right? So here's the standard Rider-Waite. You see the rockiness of I think those are mountains underneath. This offering here, this hand coming out with the sword, maybe it's clarity or truth. And then there's a crown here. I'm still kind of learning about like the symbolism of the crown. I don't know it completely. But here's where my study deck comes in. This one has keywords on it, right? So this is very similar. The colors are not, though, and the colors can make you feel and give indication of different things. So color is very important, just in general to me, but clearly this one is the opposite color palette, right? But it still has the same basic imagery. The sword is coming out, you have the crown, you have the foliage. So this one says that the Ace of Swords is a breakthrough, truth, new insights, new ideas, vision, focus, mental clarity, and success. So it still doesn't tell me really what that crown is, and I'm gonna learn. But as you'll see, the crown changes in the next few decks that I show. So I think it's an important element, but for the most part, these are very, very similar. I may see if I'm just in a mood or a zone where this color palette speaks to me more, or I get the dreaminess of this, right? Actually, that's a good point. I see the dreaminess more of the Ace of Swords, of this breaking through the fog with the clarity of the light coming from here. And it's also still a bit dark up here, so it's not completely clear, but this is coming from the darkness with this warmth and this love, even in just the realm of air, breaking through it. So I would see that more here, even though the imagery takes very, very closely, right, to the original Rider-Waite. Yeah, so we'll go to the next card, or the next deck. Okay, so looking at this Ace of Swords with this next deck that I have, I love what this really kind of shows me as far as where I am right now. This one, the color palette is, for some reason in this card, is very soothing. But you have this, again, it's not something being handed to you. You are holding these ideas. You are holding these new insights and this focus, right? But it's coming from you, and it's not clear right away because you still have the clouds behind you. You still have piercing through a cloud here that's all around it. And then you finally get through to the clouds and you have this crown on this. And I see these little things where I'm thinking that has to do with insight, because I see that there as well. But this one is just a very simple crown. You know, the simplicity of maybe an idea, or the clarity of an idea that you've caught. You're like, hey, I got this, right? Because it's not sitting on there framing it. It's like you just kind of hooked it a little bit. Yeah, so yeah, that's how I would see these two differently. But even very similar in the imagery, but different. Okay, so next one. So this next deck, as you can imagine, see the theme here, deviates very much from the original imagery of the Rider-Waite. But I think this also speaks in such a different way, right? You have the Ace of, this one names it voices, and maybe that has to do with the mental clarity or the thoughts, more specifically. And this one takes the clouds and it kind of puts the clouds in a ring, but it's a clear day, and then it's even bigger in the middle of her. So she's looking behind, but you see this clarity come right to her head. And when that clarity hits, you have all this color. This color may show creativity, ideas, something that is just creative, right? It could be creative inspiration. It's flowing all around her, so that may be lots of different ideas coming from it. You have this owl, this truth. I see them as so wise, but the owl is in flight, and the owl is looking directly at me, looking at this card. And you've got these flags here that's going around. So I see so much movement, and you see the two triangles kind of supporting this, or coming up from the ground and coming from the, I say this is the universe here. You do see a little bit of the trees at the bottom, but they're so small. It's just a little bit of the trees, and you see this mountain that is kind of faded. So I could see so much more into this just looking at this image, and then again after that maybe draw from what I know of the standard, because the imagery is different. So understanding what this card means as far as the roots is really important, because it's not indicated on the card. Okay, next one. Okay, so this next one really zooms in and focuses to me on thoughts, on the mind, on manifesting that, on focus, on new insights, because you're in the middle of a library. You have two, you can go either way. You have ladders going up to either side. You're focused in the middle. There's this clarity that's coming from the window that you're looking out of. You have all this knowledge around you. You have all these different inspirations or pieces of light and truth coming from the ceiling, right? And if you look right in there, it's like a skylight with clouds, but the light is coming from it as well. So I see this, even though it's completely different, I see this as a manifestation of this card, like, and how I could see it in maybe in my real life, right? Not have to think too hard about what does this mean, but I'm seeing it in this card. It can draw meaning right from there, right? There's so many places that your eyes can go for an element of this card and what it means. Ooh, I like this. Okay, we're going to the last one. Now we're on to the last suit, the suit of Earth or Pentacles, and this is the Ace of Pentacles. And I think I'm going to keep saying this. Aces challenge me. I'm very very, very surface level of what the aces represent. I just know that it's a new beginning. So newness is of it. So I'm not going to even pretend to know. I'm going to pull this out here and we're going to read together. So if we're just looking at this image just here, what an Ace of Pentacles represents is new material offer, new job or promotion, new opportunity, new manifestation, resources, stability, and prosperity. Looking at these two together, I do see, oh, actually, let me kind of do it this way. So with that being said, I see this road to this archway of like a new beginning of walking through something, or you could be coming from that, right? Because there are hills there. Again, I see this as an offering. This is coming to you. This huge coin that you're holding, you're cradling here. It's like, take this. And also it's very lush here, which lends itself to the element, which is earth, right? You have the ground, you have plants and grass and things that are growing and very material, like you can touch it. So looking at that one in comparison to this one, again, very similar, but you have more intricacies on this coin, right? You see specifically these flowers. For me, it just would be the color. I would zoom into that a lot and maybe pull something from this coin. But this is just a different color palette, which again, for me, says a lot because color, I pay attention to it and what it can mean. But this is just two different interpretations of the card, but very similar, very close to this one. Doesn't deviate too much. Okay, on to the next. Okay, and this one here, this is when it starts, this type is when it starts to change. So I see this Ace of Pentacles here as coming from the ground, like you're literally reaching up to grab this new opportunity. It's not just being handed to you, it's right there. You see it, you're taking the action to reach up through these trees, through the ground, through the clouds to grab this opportunity. And it's not completely in your hands yet because just the fingertips are touching this. You can tell that it's either you got to put a little bit more effort to grasp onto it, to grab it, but it's there. It's sitting there, it's right there. You just have to grab it and do something with it, right? Which is a potential. So it is there, it's offered to you, but you've got to put in some action. Whereas this one here, it almost says, hey, just look up. It's right there, take it. I'm handing it to you. Don't be a dupe, just get it. This one's like, no, I see it, let me grab it. So that's how I can see these two differently. And again, like losing some of the imagery here, you're just focusing on that piece of it and the clouds. Oh yeah, so I see these two this way. All right, next one. Okay, so for this next one, I also am learning about directionality in cards as well. And so that comes into play with the direction she's facing. But as you can see, these are totally different. So this one is renamed with Ace of Materials instead of Pentacles. So just look and see the difference. Now we're just going to kind of talk about this one. So this one, a lot of the elements aren't there. It's focused on her face. You see the flowers, you see the grass, you see this earthy nature, this earth quality, the stability. You have the circle here that's lined with, it looks like crystals this looks like crystals to me. You see these elements more in this card, and she's facing this direction, which is the direction of the future. So it's like this new beginning, this potential that has potential, I guess, looking forward towards the future, but it's very much present and now. There's lots of different other layers to this. I haven't quite gotten them all, but I just completely see more in terms of like what I can pull from it with a card like this. Okay, we'll go to the next card. So this next one is totally different, right? It's like, you gotta know what the Ace of Pentacles means if that's what you're looking for, right? Because you're not gonna see it in the same way in this card. But there's a beauty to that, right? I'm looking at this card, she's facing you as opposed to this one, which is facing in the future. She's in the present, she's in the now. She's looking at you, she's like, I am voluptuous, I am beautiful, I am focused, I am sitting here surrounded by material things, but she's not overcome by these things, right? She's at her computer, she's eating something, she's looking at you, the look in her eyes is like, we're making something happening right now, right? And you have the world or things that are manifested tangibly behind her, as you can see through this window here. But the intensity of her and her hand and how she's sitting, you're like, you can tell that this is someone that has manifested some things. She's going some places. She's doing some things. And she's very grounded and very present in now. Yeah, I love this deck. I love this card. I love the diversity. Just side note too in this as well. So, yeah. Okay, so that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this kind of video. I really enjoyed making it. It's helping me to test what I know about the cards because I'm having to speak it out in a video. I was a little bit nervous about doing it, especially with starting with the aces, and I'm challenged with the aces. But I think if you're looking at a way to learn things, talking it out loud actually really helps. But that is a side note. So yeah, so this is the first. Of course, we'll go through all the way to all the cards, but I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you for giving me some of your time. I always appreciate when you do. Whatever time it is for you, morning, noon, or night, I always love that you sign on and you take a look at my videos. So I will try to link the elements below in the description. But if I don't, please know. Sorry. All right, you guys, stop babbling. Bye. 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 Bye.